We have been charged with having a high-octane dialogue about the role of science and design.
I think we should forget about the language of science and the language of design and think about what it's like being a human being. And I think kids are great examples of people who just do something that feels instinctive to them, and they don't differentiate between science, technology, engineering, all that rubbish. They just do stuff.
You've got premature specialisation in schools.
We're sort of forced to choose, we're forced to decide what we are and what we're interested in and how we get to that point.
Until you get to the point in higher education where they are completely separate worlds.
More kind of fusing of disciplines is a really, really healthy thing.
The idea of design and science talking to each other is so crucial, so obvious, and yet it doesn't really happen enough. How do you actually make this technology stuff, this science stuff, which is fascinating in itself, make sense for everybody else?
Designers need to explain and be interested in explaining every aspect of science.
The creative process, that is a vital part of designing.
But it's a vital part of science too, isn't it? Because you've got to imagine something in the future and then aim towards it in some way.
You've got to do something that nobody else has ever done.
I'm just curious about the difference between engineering and science in this conversation, because I think that we need to, the engineering and design both take a problem-solving attitude, and I don't think design is just about problem-solving. And I think that that's where the interesting partnership with science comes, is this much more exploratory realm.
You've got to define the question, and it's that's the crucial creative step. It's the solving the problem is the engineering bit.
I think there are, in fact, two cultures. Design as taught in art schools and art and design environments, and engineering and science as taught in mainstream universities. They don't get together enough, and I think matchmaking should be one of the themes of this evening.
You do need to have a very broad way of looking at the world to be a good designer, because you have to understand how your product is going to be used. The big word of tonight was collaboration.
It's the ability to have some other tool sets from outside your field that enables you to form these collaborative teams. And the collaborative teams are the answer. We all agree about that.
I think the melting pot here is to bring all of these ingredients, design, science, engineering, business together and play with them.
Okay.
And that is the starting point, perhaps.
The key thing is, and I think you mentioned it as well, is originality and creativity.
Right.
If you submit a patent application, it's because you've designed something new that no one's done before.
Additive manufacturing, subtractive manufacturing, CNC cutting, which we see here, they've been going on for quite a long time, but these things are moving apace, and they do involve designers. They involve the designers who come from the animation and gaming industries. They involve scientists, they involve material scientists who are developing the new materials that we're all looking for to be used in these kinds of manufacturing. But the whole way of us approaching manufacturing is going to be so different.
What we've seen at the Technology Strategy Board is enormous opportunities when designers and technologists work together to turn out new products and services.
The tool set we all need is a tool set that links to design, so that we can talk to the designers and understand what they're trying to say and understand their language.
It's the bringing together of the imagination of the future that's been talked about, and the technological capability that leads to commercial success.
I think it's not so much about just kind of sitting actually to try and get into a science lab and try and work with scientists and create a trustworthy relationship. Takes years, and that collaboration then is so critical in helping shape the technology before it becomes a product. So I think design has a very critical role in making sure that the science is human.
I think there's some important things here. One is to challenge preconceived ideas. That helps people think about the future and what they're doing. The other is to give people permission to get excited about things, right?
We can look at celebrating and enabling people not to fit in the moulds of I'm a scientist or I'm a designer or I'm whatever it is, but that I'm a person that looks at things totally different.
People collaborating enjoy collaborating, and because they actually get better results when they collaborate, and because it's a natural process, it just produces much stronger ideas.
Okay. It's very important that you should have the engineers, the marketing people and the designers involved collaborating right from the first point.
There's too many people out there who think you can bring a designer in at the last minute, like the 7th Cavalry, turn my idea, my innovation into a product. And it's got to happen right from the earliest stage, step by step, the two kinds of understanding working together.
I think it's wrong for designers to imagine that technology is a done deal, that they don't need to know about it, that they do not need to know the significance of basic scientific principles. And I fear that that is too prevalent in British art schools.
If we're really going to connect science in the purest sense through all technology development into engineering, through to design and all the things that that represents, you need people that credibly, individually, can walk between those different silos. And I don't see enough of those sorts of people.
The vital thing seems to me to be that the engineer, the good engineer has some of the designer tool sets, and the good designer has some of the engineering tool sets. You can't collaborate with somebody if you don't share any of the tool sets. I would like to see education at school level, frankly, built around having the tool sets.
The skill that is really important to develop is how to find other people who have skills that you don't have.
How do we create systems that will encourage risk between disciplines so that we can create new narratives?
If science is getting the funding but doesn't have the glamour, I don't think arts and design are necessarily getting the funds. And I think having worked as a designer in science and being part of a scientific grant, that's so key, is finding ways to actually fund those experiments and find ways to actually open up roles that aren't quite defined yet, that to actually allow people in to build teams that are cross disciplines like that.
A strong point at us and the research councils is to fund this cross working, because if it's not paid for, it won't become normal and institutionalised and power the next industrial revolution which everybody's been talking about.
I just think we need to find ways of celebrating people that just don't fit into boxes.
For Britain to succeed, we need to converge, collaborate, and then we may conquer.
I think the sense that these different disciplines have got an enormous amount to give to each other has come out very clearly from the discussion, and teams as the best way of bringing together these distinct skills was also very powerful. So, very enjoyable evening. Thanks.